The Fula people of Fulani are Fulɓe, numbering approximately 20 million people in total, are one of the most widely dispersed and culturally diverse of the peoples of Africa. The Fulani are bound together by the Fula language as well as by some basic cultural elements such as the pulaaku, a code of conduct common to all Fulani groups. A significant proportion of the number are nomadic, making them the largest pastoral nomadic group in the world. Spread over many countries, they are found mainly in West Africa and northern parts of Central Africa, but also in Sudan and Egypt. Names. There are many names used in other languages to refer to the Fulɓe. Fulani in English is borrowed from the Hausa term. Fula, from Manding languages, is also used in English, and sometimes spelled Fula or Fula. Fula and Fulani are commonly used in English, including within Africa. The French borrowed the Wolof term pel, which is variously spelled pule, pule, and even pule. More recently, the fulfilled Pula term Fulɓe, which is a plural noun, has been anglicized as Fulɓe, which some people use. In Portuguese, the terms Fula or Futa are used. The terms Falata, Forlata, or Falata are of Kanuri origins, and are often the ethnonyms by which Fulani people are identified by in Sudan. Geographic distribution. African countries where they are present include Mauritania, Ghana, Senegal, Guinea, the Gambia, Mali, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Niger, Chad, Togo, Gabon, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, Liberia, and as far east as the Red Sea in Sudan and Egypt, with the exception of Guinea, where the Fula make up an ethnic plurality or approximately 49% plus of the population, and Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger and Cameroon. Fulas are minorities in nearly all other countries they live in. Alongside, many also speak other languages of the countries they inhabit, making many Fulani bilingual or even trilingual in nature. Such languages include Hausa, Bambara, Wolof, and Arabic. Major concentrations of Fulani people exist in the Futajalan highlands of central Guinea and south into the northernmost reaches of Sierra Leone, the Futa Toro savanna grasslands of Senegal and southern Mauritania, the Messina Inland Niger River Delta system around central Mali, and, especially in the regions around Mopti and the Nioro du Sahel in the Kayes region, the Borgu settlements of Benin, Togo and west-central Nigeria, the northern parts of Burkina Faso in the Sahel regions, provinces of Seno, Wadelin, and Somme, and the areas occupied by the Sokoto Caliphate, which includes what is now southern Niger and northern Nigeria. This is the area known as the Fombana, literally meaning the south, in Adamawa fulfilled, because it represented the most southern and eastern reaches of Fulɓe hegemonic dominance in West Africa. In this area, fulfilled is the local lingua franca and language of cross-cultural communication. Further east of this area, Fulani communities become predominantly nomadic, and exist at less organized social systems. These are the areas of the Chari-Baguayami region and its river systems, in Chad and the Central African Republic, the Wadi highlands of eastern Chad, the areas around Kordofan, Darfur and the Blue Nile, Sena, Kassala regions of Sudan, as well as the Red Sea coastal city of Port Sudan. The Fulani on the way to or back from the pilgrimage to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, settled in many parts of eastern Sudan, today representing a distinct community of over 2 million people referred to as the Fulata, while their early habitat in West Africa was apparently in an area in the vicinity of the borders of present-day Mali, Senegal and Mauritania. They are now, after centuries of gradual migrations and conquests, spread throughout the wide band of West and Central Africa. The Fulani people occupy a vast geographical expanse located roughly in a longitudinal east-west band immediately south of the Sahara, and just north of the coastal rainforest and swamps, although situations have changed a lot in recent times, and a sizable proportion of Fulani people now live in the heavily forested zones to the south, in countries like Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Cameroon, Guinea, the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Various Fulɓe subgroups are now found well within the forested southern quarter of West and Central Africa. There are approximately 20 million Fulani people. They are considered among the most widely dispersed and culturally diverse peoples in all of Africa. Quote, "There are generally three different types of Fulani based on settlement patterns, viz. the nomadic, pastoral and Mabororo, the semi-nomadic and the settled or town Fulani. The pastoral Fulani move around with the cattle throughout the year. Typically, they do not stay around for long stretches, not more than 2 to 4 months at a time. The semi-nomadic Fulani can either be Fulɓe families who happen to settle down temporarily at particular times of the year, or Fulɓe families who do not browse around past their immediate surroundings, and even though they possess livestock, they do not wander away from a fixed or settled homestead not too far away. They are basically in-betweeners. Settled Fulani live in villages, towns and cities permanently and have given up nomadic life completely in favor of an urban one. These processes of settlement, concentration and military conquest led to the existence of organized and long-established communities of Fulani, varying in size from small villages to towns. Today, some major Fulani towns include Labé, Pitta, Mamou and Alaba in Guinea, Idi, Matam and Podor in Senegal and Mauritania, Bandiagra, Mopti, Dori, Gorom and Jabo in Mali and Burkina Faso on the bend of the Niger, and Berning-Kebbi, Gombe, Yola, Jalingard, Mayo Belwa, Mubi, Marwa, Naunda, Guinea and Garoua in the countries of Cameroon and Nigeria. In most of these communities, the Fulani are usually perceived as a ruling class. Typically, Fulɓe belonging to the same affinity bloc tend to cluster together in culture, customs, and dialectal variety. Eastern Fulɓe subgroups tend to be more similar to each other than to other subgroups, and the same applies with most Western groups. Culturally speaking, the central Fulɓe subgroups are roughly in between the Western and Eastern Fulani cultural niches. For example, the Masi and the Fulɓe share similarities both dialectally and culturally to Nigeria, Cameroonian, as well as Senegalese, Guinean Fulɓe cultures. Accordingly, the Western groups are the most divergent from the Eastern groups and vice versa. Overall, however, all share most cultural practices to a large extent. Related groups and caste system. Fula society in most parts of West Africa features the caste divisions typical of the region. In Mali, Burkina Faso and Senegal, for instance, those within the Fulɓe cultural sphere, but who are not ethnically Fula, are referred to as Yimbe Pulaakus, i.e. As such, Fulani society consists of people who may or may not be ethnic Fulani. There are the Fulani proper, also referred to as the Fulɓe, including the Pulo and the Dimo, meaning noble. There is the artisan caste, including blacksmiths, potters, griots, genealogists, woodworkers, and dressmakers. They, like the Fulɓe, are free people. Then there are those groups of captive, slave or serf ancestry, the Makudo, Rimabi, Dimaho, and less often Balibi, the Fulani equivalent of the Tuareg Akela known as Buzo, Bella in the Hausa and Songhay languages respectively. The last two categories are not distinguishable in any significant way, and today, most are essentially free by law. The castes are endogamous in nature, meaning individuals marry only within their caste. Although the Fulɓe no longer have any legal rights over the Rimabi, memories of the past relationship are still very much alive in both groups. Paul Reisman, an American ethnographer who resided among the Jelgoji Fulɓe of Burkina Faso in the 1980s, explains, "When I was still a newcomer in the area, people would ask me, 'Can you tell Fulɓe and Rimabi apart?' Sometimes the question would be put to me, upon my arrival at a gathering of people whom I didn't know, and I would be asked to point out the Fulɓe and the Makube, or to say which was which between two men seated next to each other. At the time, I thought of this as a test of my knowledge, since people knew I was studying the language and life of the people. But on reflection, I see that it was also a test of themselves, which was meant to confirm that even to a fairly ignorant foreigner, the Fulɓe and Makube were easy to differentiate as types. The main differences I was supposed to notice were visual. The ideal is that Fulɓe are tall, slim, and light-skinned. They have thin straight noses and the hair tends to be long and curly. In contrast, the Rimabi are stocky, tending towards corpulence, dark-skinned with flat, squashed noses and short kinky hair. The everyday clothing worn by the Fulɓe is easily distinguishable from that worn by the Rimabi. Jelgoji Fulɓe youth wear a distinctive tunic, made from homespun cloth they sew and dye themselves, while Rimabi youth of the same age generally wear machine-woven cotton, sewn by tailors in markets or by themselves. This caste system, however, wasn't as elaborate in places like northern Nigeria, eastern Niger or Cameroon, where in the past people were either slaves, Fulɓe, or Rimbe. According to some estimates, by the late 19th century, slaves constituted about 50% of the population of the Fulɓe-ruled Adamawa Emirate, where they were referred to as Jaobi. Though seemingly extraordinary, these figures are representative of many other emirates of the Sokoto Caliphate, of which Adamawa formed a part. In many cases the Fulani and Hausa people have taken some influences from each other's cultures. This is because, amongst the Fulɓe nomads of this region, the first group that initiated the sedentary lifestyle were known as the Torobe clan, the majority of whom were members of Sheikh Usman Dan Fodio's group. Many of them were already working in the royal courts of the Hausa kings as well as major urban centers of northern Nigeria, as prized religious advisors and men of knowledge. Upon the success recorded in the 1804 Fulani War of Usman Dan Fodio, many of them subsequently joined the ruling classes of the northern Nigerian emirate. They dress and speak like the Hausa neighbors and live in the same form. The Fulɓe who didn't settle during this period and the descendants, however, still keep an obvious distinct identity from that of the Hausa and other surrounding groups of the region. This phenomenon is not seen outside the eastern subregion of West Africa and in other parts of the region. Cultures between the Fulani and other groups are kept largely distinct. One closely related group is the Tukola people in the central Senegal River Valley, who are essentially a mixture of Sira, Wolof, Fulɓe and Rimabi peoples. They had a strong kingdom paying a negotiated tribute to the Fula. Large numbers of other Fula speakers live scattered in the region and have a low status. They are descendants of Fula-owned slaves, now legally emancipated. In some regions they still pay tribute to Fula elites, and they are often denied chances for upward social mobility. In between groups of the Fula-speaking fishermen and handcraftsmen. These groups are often collectively referred to as Pula. The world.A are a subgroup of the Fula. Another related group are the Wasulu people, who are partly ethnic Fulani living in areas of West Africa that constitute parts of Ivory Coast, Guinea and Mali. They inhabit a region that expands from the southwestern corner of Mali to the northwestern corner of Ivory Coast, and the northeastern part of Guinea. The Wassoulou settled among the Maninka. It is believed that they settled in Yanfolila and the surrounding areas between the 11th and 14th centuries. They are then held to have adopted the language and culture of the surrounding Maninka and Bambara. The Wassoulou now speak the Bambara language with a mixture of the Maninka language, which is called Wassalunkin. Many of the Wassoulou are farmers, with cotton being their main crop. Islam was introduced to the group in the late 19th century. Like their Fulani brethren, the Wassoulou are today almost 100% Muslim. The internationally renowned Malian singer Ouma Ousangare is originally from the Wassoulou group of Mali.